you very much indeed for that. Let's move now to the cost of living crisis. The fact is that, I don't need to tell you, but everyone is really struggling to make ends meet. We've seen prices go up extraordinarily high. We've seen inflation running at 9.4%. It's thought that's going to go even higher. People changing the way they're shopping. They're going to different supermarkets. They're actually choosing different food as a result. I found myself doing exactly that. I've changed completely my shopping habits. I'm now shopping in a completely different supermarket, and I look very carefully at the prices of what's on offer. And some of the prices are absolutely extraordinary. And we've heard the energy price cap is going to go up to £4,000. That is a lot of money, and many people wondering how on earth they're going to pay that. Now, I talked about this yesterday, the fact that Centrica has posted profits in the first 6 months of £1.3 billion. Compare that to last year, it was 262 million. When you look at Shell, in Q2 alone, they made £9.5 billion profit, and yet our energy bills go up and up and up. And what can we do about it? Well, let's talk now to Dr. Roger Gewolb. He is CEO of Fair Money. He's a personal finance expert. Good morning to you.
Good morning, David.
Thank you very much indeed for joining me. People are very worried, actually. This is something that is key to everyone. Clearly, families are managing on a budget. That budget has gone out the window.
Well, it's worse than that. If you listen to all the programs that I'm on, if you listen to the callers, there really are people starving. There are people going without meals. There are people who can't heat the water in their house. There are people who can't get to work, can't drive to see their family. It's a terrible crisis. And we are essentially on a ship which is drifting at sea while the captain and the crew are all fighting each other with swords on the bridge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I said, I wondered whether it was so self-indulgent. MPs are on a break for 6 weeks. Of course, we have the Conservative Party leadership campaign taking place. We don't seem to have a Prime Minister. He's far too busy getting married this afternoon, I believe. But surely the country needs strong leadership now. We need to do something now, dramatic. It cannot wait. As you say, people are starving.
We have a mega problem like we've never had before. We have Rishi, who seems to want to be the only person on the planet to raise taxes. He feels that we need to pay back the debt from COVID as fast as possible in order not to burden our children and grandchildren. Well, our children and grandchildren are going to be alive because we led the world in vaccinations. And I'm not sure that they're actually that impatient. The debt, do you know when the debt from World War II was paid back? It was paid, the last $83 million, David, was paid back on New Year's Eve 2006.
Yes.
61 years after World War II.
But that's the point, isn't it? So Liz Truss wants COVID to be treated as a war debt. She's made that clear.
She does, but she did not deny in the debates with Rishi that interest rates are going to rise under her economic plan. And listening to her, I have great respect for her, but her fundamental grasp of economics is not strong, and it's going to rely on Dominic Cummings and Nick whatever and all sorts of other people. We don't know who those are. And if interest rates go to 7%, it's going to be crippling. Millions and millions of Britons are now. We're at 1.25 right now. Imagine if and the banks are already taking advantage of this and doubling mortgage payments for many people. Yeah. I believe you said on another program you've reset your mortgage and the price has doubled.
My mortgage doubled, that is correct.
Yeah, you did say that a week or so ago. I mean, imagine if your mortgage rates go to 8, 9, 10%. People are going to lose their homes by the millions.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work. And the sheer craziness of it, I was thinking, I don't mean to be flippant, but I mean, I can well understand the absolutely brilliant Kate McCann, who was doing so well. I mean, far ahead of the other debates, I thought, fainting from the sheer banality of the discussions going on.
Maybe that's what caused it.
Look at her face. She is a highly intelligent, discerning young woman, and it was probably just too much, and her systems went down. The banality, look, the latest thing is that Liz Truss's camp is saying, oh, Rishi, you've done a U-turn. You've changed your position. You said you weren't going to take that off home energy. Now you have. Grant Shapps says, no. He said that he would see how we go. But, I mean, the whole thing is the tempest in the teapot, David, because what is he actually talking about? He's talking about giving you 160 pounds back on your 4,000 pounds of home energy. Please put that where the sun don't shine. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I mean, it's totally ridiculous.
It's like 5p on petrol. How is that supposed to help us? I mean, they just don't have a grasp, these people. They don't realize.
So I'm not an economist. But are you saying that actually what we should be doing is contrary to everything that they are setting out? Should we be cutting interest rates at this point?
Totally. We never should have raised interest rates. The United States, the Fed raised interest rates. The Federal Reserve, the central bank in the States, raised interest rates, I think, for several different factors. I don't want to get into all sorts of technical stuff, but it really has to do with indicators in the United States bond markets that they always look at. Those 2 or 3 indicators of what's happening in the bond markets help them set interest rates. They're not applicable here. We have cost push inflation. The inflation we have is being caused by the cost of raw materials, by Ukraine exacerbating that. The war in Ukraine, not by consumer spending.
Indeed.
Dr. David Bull is not spending money on restaurants every night and being crazy and needs to be reined back. People are actually cutting back there. Yeah. So why would you make somebody who doesn't want to borrow, who has to borrow to survive, pay more? Yeah. Why would you make them pay double to stay in their house?
I've got Georgie Frost with me, who is a broadcaster and journalist and obviously a personal finance journalist. What question would you like to put to him?
I find that a really interesting proposition, the idea of cutting interest rates at the moment. Where would you like them to go, and for what sort of economic function would you like that to happen? Because that's I'm not disagreeing with your premise there, but I'm just curious as to what you think will happen to inflation. I understand that, you know, underlying a lot of that is there's very little the Bank of England can do. Is there anything that the Bank of England can do about inflation? Do you think the Bank of England has moved quick enough? Are central banks losing their grip almost?
Those are all good questions, Georgie. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think there's all that much that the Bank of England or any central bank can do in the instance of cost push inflation, which we are suffering from. We don't have any demand pull inflation. That's where consumer spending is driving inflation. They do have some of that in the States, and that's the reason they've raised their interest rates 4 times recently. We're not quite in that position. There isn't a lot that you can do about cost push inflation. And in fact, what's really got me puzzled is why we've had no explanation, not a word from the old lady as to why this is different than 2009. Now, I'm sure you'll recall in 2009, we had cost push inflation from rising oil prices and other things. The Bank of England just sat there and they said, we're going to let inflation run itself out. Now, most economists will tell you, when you have the kind of inflation we do, you let it run itself out. You don't raise interest rates. They didn't raise, they were at 0.5%, I believe, in 2009. And to answer you very specifically, I hope, they let it run doing nothing until 2012, and they let the inflation run itself out. That's what they should be doing now. And they didn't have a cost of living crisis then. They didn't have people starving. They didn't have motorway roadblocks.
Yeah.
So why aren't they doing it now?
What if it doesn't?
I have to jump in, I'm afraid. Time is tight. But clearly, many people are saying that inflation will run out. I think many economists
a lot of people
are
are suggesting, because they can't bear the alternative. The thought that this could, it could get entrenched, and that's what central banks are absolutely desperate to avoid.
I'm sorry, I have to go to a break. Thank you very much indeed to Dr. Roger Gewolb, who is CEO of Fair Money Personal Finance.